Hello, my name is Dante Renee, and welcome to the 10 Room Bizarro YouTube page where I talk about films that I believe need to be talked about more. Like tonight's film, 1970s Harlot. This is 1970s Harlot. And this is part of a double bill, the Peakorama Big 2 unit show from my favorite distribution company, one of them, Vinegar Syndrome. This is Harlot and Tijuana Blue. For tonight, we're only looking at Harlot. Now, Harlot and Tijuana Blue, which I'll be looking at in the future, probably, directed by Howard Zeem, I believe his last name is pronounced. And he was a one-man filmmaking machine, directing dozens of boundary-pushing sex films. And Harlot is 1970. It's 64 minutes long. And it is rated X. And Harlot, the story of a girl. There's the poster art once again, right there. And I'll show you a couple screenshots for this particular film on the back. Right there, and there's the full back right there for both of them. Let's get into Harlot here from 1970. You know, they just do not make films like this anymore. And this one in particular, if you like, you know, kind of cutting edge, outcast type of films that are really taking guerrilla style filmmaking into a whole new direction, low budget guerrilla style filmmaking, you know, Harlot, is the epitome of that rebellious cinematic art. We have a story of two high school girls. One girl is definitely already full-blown involved in her sexual exploration to the point of prostitution. Her close girlfriend is pretty much the complete opposite. But while she is the complete opposite, she's also mildly intrigued by her girlfriend's sexuality. And it is their adventures together, but really separate, that make this film. Some of those adventures are dangerous. Some of those are wild and beyond expectations. And some of them are flat out illegal on UN levels. And it is the story of not just one girl, really. It's a story of two girls. Two friends, two high school friends, and their separate sexual explorations and adventures that are separate but also a result of their connection with each other and influence upon each other. Let's get into Harlot 1970, because explaining the plot of this film actually does not do it justice. This is an example of a film that you cannot explain using words. You must explain it using motion picture. This is unlike anything I've seen before, and I feel like I've been saying that more and more, and here's another case of it. Harlot is something unlike what I've seen before once again. We have a film that is incredibly unique right here. So let's get into it. First and foremost, oh boy, the music and sound design for this film. I don't think I've ever seen a sex film, an X-rated film before, or even softcore, that had a soundtrack like this, or that had a score like this. It is bizarre, off-kilter, cacophonous, nightmarish, surreal, very, very weird, to the point where you're wondering if there's actually voices in the scene, or are those voices in the soundtrack? What the hell is going on? And the music, the sound design, the score elevates the scenes in this movie to surreal, nightmarish type levels. It's not the typical music that you would hear for a film like this, and it completely shatters the stereotypes of sex movie music, without a doubt. Now, we also have organ type church music, we also have choir music, and we also have jazz music. Now the jazz element is a little bit more, I'm a little bit more accustomed to jazz in these types of films, but having them all together and then mysterious voices talking and reverb and echoing, almost sounding preaching, and just very unnerving, almost oppressive sound design to this film, and it was really, really excellent in the way that it was being done, and at times, almost on an indie level, majestic and powerful and emotional. Wow. Really, really wild stuff. Now, when we look at the style of this film, I mean, this is 64 minutes of something wild, something unique, something dreamlike, something surreal, something unique. Um, we have, oh gosh, how do I, there were some scenes in here that really kind of made my mouth drop open. There's a scene of two people having sex on top of a building, and you know all of this stuff was guerrilla. They didn't have permits for this. And then all of a sudden I see shots of kind of, above a city, and I'm thinking this is stock footage, of a helicopter stock footage. It wasn't. All of a sudden the air footage comes to the top of that building and you see the exact same people that we were just on the building with having sex there. And I was like, "Oh my gosh." They were actually utilizing a helicopter for the footage of this film. Not only that, we have motorcycle footage, side by side, a motorcycle going through the streets. We have the characters in this film butt ass naked running through crowds in shopping centers, and you get to see old ladies in the back just staring like, what the hell's going on? Should we call the cops? That kind of thing. We have prostitution shots in front of a Baptist church. We have the destruction of an American flag in someone's hand while a sexual act is taking place. Unbelievable shots from the ground up and then from the top down, but mostly from the ground up. During the sex scenes and kind of upskirts and the legs and breasts and thighs and the way that it's being shot through a motorcycle to the girl's thighs, cramped situations in cars and in bathroom stalls, and the artistic style of the camera, the cinematography, and shooting from the ground up, shooting these wild angles that make the body parts, that make the sex look huge in the screen, and definitely doing it in kind of a gigantic, wild type of way, almost in a way seeming like a wide-angle lens, which I don't necessarily think was happening here. It could be, but it had that effect. It had the wide-angle lens effect, but from the ground up, really taking in the girls as they were standing in their skirts or standing naked and presenting their bodies, lens flare from behind, sunlit hair, sunlight through the girls' moaning faces, and their heads kind of in the blue sky. This wild slow motion sequence, with this linked up with music that was majestic, emotional, indie, powerful, weird, choir-like or something, and the focus on faces, the focus on expressions and faces filling the camera as well. This wild beach scene that incorporates slow motion, but it also incorporates fast editing and cuts of things that aren't happening in a typical time scheme at all. Some really, really wild stuff here. We also have elevator sex, beach sex, schoolroom sex, bathroom sex, all done in a very, the girls look very legit. Everybody in this film looks like they were pulled off the street. They don't look like, porn stars. So what people think of nowadays as porn stars. Everybody looks like they were pulled directly off the street, and there is that real legit vibe to everything. Now, the weirdest thing is, as I was watching the film, I thought the film was, it's probably early 60s. It's probably mid 60s. It wasn't. It was 1970, but it had a very strong vibe to me of early 60s almost. Now the two lead girls definitely seemed 70s to me, but the other characters, the older people that were having sex with them, the teachers, the staff, they all looked really 60s. Even the cars looked really, really 60s in the movie. And some of the hairstyles. Now for the sex scenes, we have they're not long sex scenes, but they're kind of raw, kind of maybe the people didn't take a shower beforehand. It kind of has that vibe, dirty nails and sweaty, hair. People weren't shaving, obviously, so it has that whole vibe, that whole dirty, kind of sweaty, possibly smelly vibe to it. But the one girl, not the lead, playing Harlot, but the other girl was really my favorite girl in the film. I loved her look, her body, her hair, her face, her expressions, her two front teeth that were kind of buck in a weird way or separate. And the sex scenes, you have close-up shots of buttholes or vaginas and penises right in the camera, the head of the penis like 3D right in the camera. But you also have some great distance shots of the sex, really taking it all in. And then there's even a shocking sequence involving a guy with a very bizarre fetish that involves brushing his testicles with a hard brush and sticking objects in his butthole, as well as some interesting mommy issues and between mommy watching him watching or mommy watching him not watching. This is some wild stuff here, folks. And really pushing boundaries of guerrilla filmmaking, and there is definitely a rebellious vibe going on here in this film. Possibly politically, religiously, and definitely culturally. Maybe a better way to say that is sociologically. You could say it's a sign of the times, 1970. And low budget. You can hear the wind blowing at times. The dialogue is hard to hear, but I mean, this is a print here. I don't even know where the hell they even got this print from, but it says scanned and restored in 2K from 16 millimeter vault elements. They even have a commentary from the director on here. So much praise to Vinegar Syndrome for doing this. Harlot is quite a unique X-rated experience in 64 minutes. This was something very, very original and surreal and nightmarish and dreamlike and sexy and erotic all at the same time and weird. Here it is, folks. This is 1970s Harlot. You see the girl's face in red right there and the blow-up doll behind me there. Sorry. There it is. Harlot. Thank you so much for watching the 10 Room Bizarro YouTube page where I talk about films that I believe need to be talked about more, like 1970s Harlot. Thank you so much and have a great night.